This episode is made possible by our sponsor, Landmark College, the college for students who learn differently, offering comprehensive supports for students with ADHD and other learning differences, both on campus and online. Learn more at lcdistraction.org.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alisyn Camerota. Welcome to Distraction. As you've heard me talk about, I was a free-range kid. My friends and I guess all people who were raised in the 70s and 80s, jumped on our bikes in the morning. Our parents didn't know where we were all day. At some point after dark, or when it was getting dark, we showed back up. You know, they weren't tracking our every move. And by the time I was 15, that kind of freedom had evolved to my friends and I jumping in a car and going to New York City for the night to CBGB's to see, the punk rock bands that we loved. So it's unthinkable, frankly, right now to imagine my own 3 teenage kids doing something like that. And I feel sorry for them because I loved that freedom. And I think it built self-reliance. I mean, of course, there was a downside to that kind of freedom, which we'll get into. But I wonder how to build self-reliance and resiliency in kids without them being able to do things on their own. So my guest on the podcast this week is Lenore Skenazy. She coined the term free-range kids that I have used ever since I learned it from her. And I spoke to her about whether resiliency is learned or genetic and why so many parents think our kids are so fragile. I want to bring up a couple of things and get your pointers because this is obviously, I thought this was just my problem. Okay. I thought that I was the person on earth struggling the most with having been free range and now being a helicopter parent against her will. Okay. I don't want to be a helicopter parent, but I am a helicopter parent. And I thought nobody seems as upset about it as me. So on my social media platforms, I put out some questions just about resiliency.
Oh, I can't wait.
So I asked my followers on Instagram and Facebook about resiliency, and I thought the findings were interesting.
Yeah.
5 times as many people think that it's learned rather than genetic. So being a resilient kid is learned. In other words, you have to be trained, you learn. Okay. It's not just something you're born with. Twice as many people.
Wait. I agree that it might not be something that you're born with, but trained implies adult taught. Whereas I think what you were talking about, your own resiliency from childhood, was learning by doing and by having some independence as opposed to going to resiliency classes.
You're exactly right. And that's true because that's what my followers on social media felt also. The only question was learned rather than genetic. So I didn't clarify if they've learned it on their own just by being free range out in the world or if parents instill it somehow. But many more people think that it's not like something, just a characteristic that you're born with,
Right.
Twice as many people worry about their kids not having enough grit as they think that their kids do. 5 times as many people think that helicopter parenting is bad versus good.
Oh, wow.
Okay. 5 times as many people think that helicopter parenting is preventing our children from learning resilience.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest sources of mom guilt. So, there's this phrase, mom guilt. I feel bad about this time we're living in, but I don't blame myself.
Right.
I don't really suffer from mom guilt.
Good.
It's almost like a different language. I don't even know what that means. But anyway, I know it exists. So one of the biggest sources of mom guilt when people were allowed to write in what their source of mom guilt was is, quote, doing too much for my child, helicopter.
Yeah.
So everybody's bummed out about this is the gist of it.
Right. So first of all, let's go back to what we were talking about before, which is that if Parents Magazine is telling you can't leave your kid to have a play date and hopefully have an argument with her friend and get over it and be friends again, that's like the beginning of anti-fragility, right? You have just made one little layer of, okay, that was bad, but it was okay. Now I know that I can do it again. If you're always there, if you're always standing under the tree or under the jungle gym ready to catch your kid, then your kid doesn't get the resilience of, slipping, falling, being afraid a little bit, and then climbing a little higher and feeling the exhilaration of doing something on their own. And I really feel that when you talk about resilience, there's one of the co-founders with me of Let Grow is a man named Jonathan Haidt. He wrote a book called The Coddling of the American Mind, extraordinarily popular book. I wish my book was as popular as his. Anyways, one of the things he talks about is the idea of kids today being fragile. And he explains that there are some things in the world that are fragile, okay? Like, look, I'm holding up a glass. I know this is a podcast, you can't see, but if I drop this, it would break, right? Because it's glass. And then there are some things that are not fragile, that are like a ball. You bounce it and it bounces back up. It's just as good when it went down as when it came up. But there are some things that need tension, need a little bit of resistance for them to get strong and resilient. And one of them is the immune system, right? That's what we're talking about all these days. Now, you need to be confronted with some illness and develop antibodies before you have a good immune system. Bones need resistance. That's why people do weight training, right? You need something pushing against the bone for the bone to become stronger. And children need something in their lives that isn't just simple and obvious and pleasant and a trophy for them to become strong too, for them to become anti-fragile. But all the systems that have been set up in our culture over the last 20 or 30 years start from the assumption that kids are so fragile, in so much danger, either emotionally, you better be there to solve the spat, or physically, you have to walk the kids home. I walked my kids to and from school all the time too, and I remember nobody walked me. It just, everybody expects it, to the point where sometimes a parent wants their kid to be able to walk home from school, and the school forbids it. They just won't let it. It's too dangerous. They don't want to deal with liability. Everybody must pick up their kid. That's why there's these giant lines of cars in front of the schools every day, dropping them off in front of my old school, which is in the same neighborhood and the same houses around it when I was growing up. Now there's one-way traffic during drop-off and one-way traffic during pickup because there's so many cars.
I hate that.
And it's not just the cities, and it's not just the wealthy people. I got a call 2 years ago from a guy named Stu, who was a superintendent in Moscow, Kansas, population 299 people. And he wanted to start doing, which I will tell you about him instantly after this, some of our Let Grow ideas, because he said from his school, he could see the houses of the parents of the kids that were going to his school, and they still drove the kids in Moscow, Kansas, 299 people.
Oh, on so many levels, that's harmful.
It is. When I went around to talk to a lot of schools, I don't know if this surprises you. Let me ask you. A lot of times when there's an auction for the school, they want to raise funds. The PTA runs an auction, PTA or PTO. What they would auction off is the drop-off space right in front of the door, the easiest, most primo space. And one time when I was at a school, I saw that they had painted over the wheelchair silhouette that was on the ground. That was obviously, it was handicap parking. They painted over it and it said auction winner on the screen. And I thought, wow, talk about symbolic. So parents were vying for the opportunity to treat their child as if they were handicapped.
Oh my God.
And it starts when your kid is a baby, and there are monitors now that you can put on your kid that will register their movement level and their blood oxygen level and their temperature.
Because you don't want your baby to die of SIDS. Right.
But again, so let me say why this disturbs me. It's because it's the same reason as the handicap space. It's like you're urged, you're almost forced to be a good parent, quote unquote, to start thinking of your child as if they are in as much danger, your healthy child at home in their crib, as a child in the neonatal intensive care unit for which this monitor was developed.
God, it's such a great point. I mean, look, I everything you're saying, it resonates so much with me, but it's like, once you hear of a tragedy, you can't unhear it. And so then you're like, well, of course, this would solve SIDS.
Right.
I would not have to go through that unthinkable pain,
right.
And
actually, in terms of solving SIDS, it doesn't. But but let me not even get into that, because that is a whole horrible and dark thing. what I wanted to get into is, you're right. When your brain is picturing the very worst case scenario, which is what we've just been doing between predators, vans, death, Harambe, the only thing I found that changes parents and that can change society to make it a little less anxious and a little more trusting is, it's not me, alas. It's not my book, alas. It is your own kids. And when I say that, what I mean is, until you see your kid do something independently without you, successfully or even unsuccessfully, but that resilience, plucking up, you will have no idea that your kid can really do it. But once you see them do something on their own, it rewires you. I mean, it literally rewires your brain to seeing your kid as this embryo that's about to, that's just so delicate, or an egg or a bonsai tree, into this flourishing, beautiful, young, thriving sapling that's out there that's going to grow. And so Let Grow, the name of my organization, has the Let Grow Project. It's free. So I'm not selling anything. It's free. You can download all the information if you go to letgrow.org.
But give us the tips. I mean, so
this is it. This is the tip.
Yeah, but I mean, does it work for my 16? Like, is it too late? Like at 16 and 14?
It's not.
Okay.
I mean, if you're doing it in schools do it K through 8. So your 14-year-old is still probably in middle school or just starting high school. So it literally covers that age. But the premise behind it is very simple, which is that the kid comes home with an assignment that is, go home and do something new that you haven't done before on your own without your parents, and preferably outside the home so that they're not there listening or ready to jump in. And we list all these things from K through 8. You could play outside. You can run an errand. You can get all the ingredients for cake and bake it for your mother. I mean, it's just whatever you want to do. It's something that you or I probably would have done at their age, because it's an assignment from the school, and because all the other parents are doing it, it gives parents this push, right? Oh, they have to do it. It's an assignment. Okay. I'll give you just one quick example. A mom and dad, the dad actually was more afraid in this case. The kid was in 4th grade, 5th grade, from 4th grade on, wanted to ride his bike to school, and the parents said no, and the dad was really afraid. But he comes home with the assignment, I have to do something on my own. Can I please ride my bike to school? And the parents are like, no, too much traffic. And they compromise. Okay, he can ride his bike to his friend's house 3 blocks away on a Saturday morning when the traffic is very light, and they let him go. And he comes back a couple hours later, and he's ecstatic, and they're ecstatic because it was, a little hint that their kid was going to be okay in the world, and they're proud of him, and he's proud of himself. Monday, he still wants to ride to school. No, still too bad. But Tuesday morning, the dad says, wait a minute, why aren't we letting him ride his bike to school? Because it became normal. Nothing is normal until you've lived through it, until you've allowed it once, and then the dam breaks. And so all the parents who are so afraid, I don't blame them. We've just spent half an hour discussing, Parents Magazine and liability and the media and the norms that have grown up over this past generation or two towards thinking of everything in the very darkest way. What about SIDS? What about predators? But if you let your kid walk to school or go get the milk and they come home, you're different. And I think you're different because we are hardwired to be raising children who will live when we die. And until you see that they can do something without you, you don't believe it. And this changes everything, and it's free. And that's all. Like my life on earth now is dedicated to this one extraordinarily silly proposition. Let your kids do something without you. You will change, and they will change. It's easy.
That's so awesome, Laura. I love it. I love that you have an action plan for us. I love that it's easy. So obviously, you're saying everybody should download Let Grow.
I just want to say it's not Let's Grow. It's not Let Go. It's letgrow.org. And if you're a teacher, principal, school counselor, or parent who could bring this to any of them, do it, because when you have a whole classroom doing it, you're not the crazy mom letting her kid walk to the park while nobody else does. It's everybody's doing something.
And so for those of us today who want to experiment, what's something that we can let our kids do? What can I let my teenagers do?
All right. Well, first of all, there's an at-home version, which is called the Let Grow Independence Kit. It's the same idea. Just you can download it and start today.
Oh, good.
You talk to your your teenagers. What do they want to do? What do they feel they're ready for? And also, I'm not only talking about privileges, I'm talking about responsibilities too.
Okay.
I don't know if you have a lawn. I don't know if you're living in Manhattan, you don't have a lawn, but if you have a lawn, they can mow the lawn. They can babysit. They can do, I love the idea of by the time they're 14, 15, 16, have them offload something that you would normally do onto them. I was going to bring grandma, I was going to go to Walgreens and bring grandma her medicine. Will you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And it feels so good. I mean, the other thing is that kids, I think about it myself too. I always try to get out of doing the dishes, right? Everybody does. But when I do the dishes, I actually enjoy it. It's like it's water. I can choose whatever temperature I want. I'm getting something done. My life is not a meaningless, vast wasteland. I actually did the dishes today. I did something, before I went to bed. So give them something that actually helps you, because nobody wants to be a leech. And sometimes, if we're told to drive our kids to everything and watch them and high five every game that they play and, also play with them all the time if they don't have a friend, it's like, have them figure some stuff out on their own and have them help you. And I think that it will be better.
Oh my gosh, it's brilliant. Lenore, this has been so helpful. I really appreciate this conversation. It's just so helpful to talk about all of this because, again, I usually just stew about it. So being able to know that a lot of people feel this way and that you've already tackled these things. I guess let me finish on how are your kids?
So I think they're fine. I mean, what I really hate, honestly, I tell you, I'm part helicopter. Now they both drive. Oh my God, I hate it so much.
Yep.
And last night, my son was doing like a 6-hour drive or wherever Plattsburgh is. I actually didn't want to look it up because I know it's just far, far, far from where I live. So he was on a road trip with a buddy. Do I like that? No. Is he 23? Yes. And the older one is in Brooklyn making memes for a living, which just shows you that we can't control everything, because even if we point them towards the ideal job, whatever we're thinking of is not going to exist. And whatever they want to do is something I'd never heard of when I was growing up. So our big slogan, and we keep changing it, but this is our current slogan at Let Grow, which is when adults step back, kids step up. So just step back and you will be, it's not just because it's good, it's because it's delightful.
Lenore, it's so great. It's great to talk to you. This has been restorative.
Oh, good.
I really appreciate all of that. And I'm so glad that we've reconnected. And I will go to letgrow.org today and check it out and download the at-home kit. And it's just great. I really appreciate that you've devoted so much of your life to this wisdom that you share with everyone.
When I'm not washing dishes, of course.
Yeah. But you like that. Let's point out.
Yeah, I do. Right. Point of fact, yes.
Lenore, thanks. This has been a delight. I really appreciate talking to you.
Okay, thanks, Alisyn. I really appreciate it too. And I hope that this is the beginning of a great new podcast avenue.
Thank you. Me too. Well, I feel better. I hope you do. Maybe there is some mythical happy medium between being totally left to fend for yourself and left to your own devices, as I was and a lot of my generation was, and being bubble wrapped, as our kids are. Maybe there is some happy medium that we can learn, and it's not too late for our kids. So you can find Lenore's website at letgrow.org. And remember to subscribe to Distraction wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And please share your feedback with us. Email connect@distractionpodcast.com. I'm Alisyn Camerota. Thanks for listening. Distraction is created by Sounds Great Media. Our producer is Sarah Gerton, and special thanks to Emma Marshall, Melissa Blum, and Caitlin Goldsmith.
The episode you just heard was made possible by our sponsor, Landmark College, the college for students who learn differently, offering comprehensive supports for students with ADHD and other learning differences, both on campus and online. Learn more at lcdistraction.org.